Teaching a child who has autism can be a challenge and can also be very rewarding. By keeping 5 general principles in mind, when you teach the child, learning can become more effective and efficient and can be happier all around for all concerned. I hope these 5 tips will help both at home and at school. Collaboration is one of our 5 key principles for teaching a child with autism. If you bring the entire team together and decide as a group what skills and behaviors you want to work on, learning can be much more efficient and more practical and happier for the child in question. So think about bringing your entire team together, whether that be mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, caregivers, teachers, therapists, anyone else who has a lot of interaction with the child. Bring them all together on a regular basis, maybe once a month. And when you're in that meeting, be very clear on what behaviors and skills you want to teach. Communication is one of the 5 key concepts that we need to keep in mind whenever we're working with anyone. Remember that communication has 2 parts. It's the expressive part, or what we say or do, and there's the receptive part, where we take information in. With a child who's on the spectrum, communication can be different than some other people. There are some important principles to remember when you're communicating. The one, and you've probably heard this before, is all behavior is communication. Please remember that. That will tell you a lot about the child and what they're thinking and feeling, even if they can't express this in words. The next thing is that often children who are on the spectrum have a slower rate of responding to information. So this means it takes longer for them to understand what's been said, and it takes much longer for them to then express themselves, whether that's by doing what was asked, answering a question, pointing somewhere, anything like that. So it can take more time. So because these things take time, I'm going to give you a couple keys. 1, try to always be clear. Tell the child what to do. And 3rd, the most important thing, especially in a classroom situation, is the concept of wait time. Wait time is when you ask a question or give a direction and then stay silent for 30 seconds. It's really hard to do, but if you start working on this, you may find that that child who wasn't speaking very much becomes a little chatterbox. Generalization is something that needs to be kept in mind at all times when you're teaching. And unfortunately, in autistic spectrum, sometimes we have not been very good about thinking about generalization right from the beginning when we're trying to teach a skill or a task. What generalization means is that whatever you're teaching is taught in various environments, with various people, with various materials. If this isn't done, often a child can be able to do one skill, for example, a tabletop ABA task, in one situation, which means the room with the table with the therapist, but can't generalize that to, say, the kitchen or the classroom. So again, generalization is key, and design your instructions so that it's incorporated right from the beginning. Routines are so important for effective instruction. A concept to keep in mind is that routines save energy. By making what's happening predictable, a child can put all their emotional and mental energy and their physical energy into learning. So for example, students benefit from having a clear schedule, whether that's in pictures or writing, doesn't really matter. They need to have a schedule of what's going to happen when. Using timers to allow them to know when things are going to begin and end is a good idea. Allowing and planning them for transitions between activities, between classes, between people is critical. By giving a warning or even several warnings, we're going to be finished playing with the blocks in 5 minutes, a child can physiologically be ready to go to the next thing. By planning for routines, you may find that a child who's having difficult behaviors may improve because their energy is now on the task at hand. Teaching a child at the just right level can make all the difference in instruction. What do I mean by just right level? This is the point at which the child knows all the prerequisite skills but doesn't yet have that very next step. I look at just right level as a method of teaching. So the first thing you want to know is what can that child do? Once you figure that out, the next thing to do is decide what skill you want them to master. And the third thing is break that skill apart into its various pieces. The next thing to do is just teach one thing. So the very first step in that skill. Wait and practice until the child has that at the mastery level, which means approximately 90% of the time. And finally, repeat. Go to the second part of the task and teach it in the same way. If you follow this routine, it may seem kind of artificial at the beginning, but as you get used to it, you're going to find that it makes a lot of sense and children learn more easily and they retain what they've learned. Please take a look at the handout that I've made to go with this video to understand this technique a little bit more. But just so you remember, the just right level of learning can make all the difference. Thank you. Now that we've discussed the 5 concepts to keep in mind for education, I hope this will help you to kind of frame in your head how better to teach your child or your student who has autism spectrum disorder.